Hi, I'm Catherine Reid, host of the St. Paul Forum, and coming up next, I'm speaking with Charlie Quimby, author of Monument Road. That's next on the St. Paul Forum. Hi, I'm Catherine Reid, host of the St. Paul Forum, and joining me today is Charlie Quimby, author of Monument Road, a novel. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, Catherine.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for asking me.
Absolutely. You know, I've known you, but not as a novelist.
Right.
You had a company here over many years called Words at Work.
That's right.
So you had spent a lot of time in the Twin Cities area and done a lot of work here, but this takes you to a different place and a different medium. Tell us a little bit about how that happened.
Well, as you know, I wrote for corporations, public policy, nonprofits, and I'm one of these novelists who's actually made a living as a writer his whole life, and now that I'm a novelist, I've stopped making my living as a writer. But I grew up in Western Colorado and moved to Minnesota to go to college here in Northfield, and fell in love with the state, fell in love with a woman, and I also started in the arts, in reviewing theater and popular music and books. So this was Minneapolis, St. Paul was the place to have that career. Colorado was not. Mm-hmm. So we settled here, we raised a family. I worked different angles of the writing world, but all here in the Twin Cities. And about 1999 or so, my mother became ill, and she still lived out in Western Colorado, and we decided that to be closer to her, we'd buy some land out there and plan a house and be able to spend more time with her. She passed away after about another year or so, so that didn't happen quite the way we thought, but we started going back there more and more, did build the house, and built it near a place called Monument Road. And over the years, in going back to the place where I grew up, I was able to see it with this 40-year kind of gap, mm-hmm. and a 40-year maturity that I didn't have when you're 17, 18 driving around where you grew up. You're not looking at it the same way. Mm-hmm. And so it was very literally putting myself back in that place, in that landscape, as the person I am today, that brought this book out. I was working on a different novel. It was set in Minnesota, but going back there just began to evoke a whole bunch of things that have come out in this book.
Right, and so the land is important to you. Two lands, basically. Mm-hmm. You've really come to love this land, right, which is very, very different, obviously, than what you experienced there. Talk a little bit about the influence of land as you see it.
Well, in this, I'll just say when I came here, I didn't visit Carlton before I came. I'd never even been to the Midwest. And where I grew up is very arid. People think of Colorado as the Rocky, the alpine Rocky Mountains. But where I grew up, it was kind of high desert. And so when I came here in September, I mean, I was totally blown away.
Yeah, it was lush.
Really lush, and and when I went back,
there was humidity.
Humidity. The first question my old high school English teacher asked me when I came back, I was describing this to him, and he said, "Well, do they water their lawns there?" Because water is just such a huge thing out there, and here it's like, there's too much of it. So, so what I guess what I found going back to the West again was that contrast was very appealing and very inviting. And what is there, but is also in the Midwest here in farming communities or other places, is that there are people who are rooted to the land, both by history, by occupation, by the way they spend their days, mm-hmm. By the way they extend their lives. And then there are people more like I am, and a lot more people today are, who are attached to how they make money or attached to other to career goals or other things that take them to different places, and they're not rooted in the same way. So there's that aspect of the land, and then there's the actual features of the landscape. And in western Colorado, where I grew up, there is Grand Junction is set in a valley that is surrounded by essentially 3 different worlds. If you look east, there is an 11,000-foot flat-top mountain that has Douglas firs and looks like one place on Earth. If you look north, there's a very elephantine-looking, dry, barren landscape. Again, mountains, but looks totally different. And if you look to the south, there's an uplift of sandstone where the Earth has essentially risen up and exposed over 1 billion years of geology. So 3 different, very different places. And you can't live there, even as an outlander. You cannot be there and not reflect on your place in the world, your sense of time in the universe. So going back there, it was just, it was seeing it all new.
And so one of the things I've always loved about when I love literature and I love reading, but I think some of the most interesting books begin with a question. And it seems as though in addition to these questions, I guess I'm wondering about these themes, but the trigger for the novel came from a question you had, as I understand it. It had to do with an overheard call and a question which I guess you didn't, that's not the one you answer in the book.
It's not the one I have ultimately answered, but it started there.
But it's where it began. Tell us a little bit about that question.
My brother is a police officer in Grand Junction, Colorado, and one time I went on a ride-along with him at night, and there was a police call that came over, and he can hear it differently than I do. He's hearing 10 things at once and processing it. And so I just grasped a little bit of this call where a woman had had a fight with her boyfriend. The boyfriend had stormed off, and she said, and he may be going up to the monument, which is where Monument Road leads.
One of these geological spots
where,
you're talking about.
Where I mentioned, where the sandstone is uplifted and there's 300-foot cliffs, and he may be going to jump. And that's about all I had, because I'm sitting in the car and they're dealing with the situation. But it was clear to me that they could not go chasing this guy and would not go chasing this guy. And so I thought, what happens in that case? What would happen to that person? And so that question sort of morphed through a start on the novel that I didn't end up pursuing in quite the way it is here. But it started with this question of, what is your responsibility as a human being when you know or believe something could be happening to another human being? What's your responsibility to act? And does that bear on your relationship with that person? Does that bear on physical proximity to that person? Does it bear on just having knowledge of a situation? So some of that is in the book, but that specific incident is not.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm interested in these characters. You've formed a set of characters that are very engaging. Where did they come from for you? Did they emerge simply in the act of unpacking what you want to unpack in this novel, or had you met some of them before?
Most of them did emerge out of the writing as I was trying to solve problems, and I needed certain kinds of people to help me out of those problems I'd written myself into. And Leonard Self, the main character, is one of those that I invented totally. But there is a character, for example, her name is Helen. She's a high school girl. In the book, she comes in partway into the book, and she has this ambition to be an actress and blow all the boys away in school and kind of show up the homecoming queen and show the whole world how wonderful and original and creative she is. And I did, in high school, have an incident that is similar to what's described in the book, but not as dramatic, with a young woman up on a cliff in which the woman was the brave person, I was the fraidy cat. And that is not conducive to romance if you're a macho guy. It just doesn't work very well. So that moment, when I was thinking about this landscape and the different reactions that the same physical place can evoke, and sometimes from surprising people. I was the football player. I was the guy who's afraid, and here's this girl who's sitting over the edge and dangling her legs, and
there's a 300-foot drop.
and it's a 300-foot drop, and so that moment was really an early moment that helped me think about people's relationship to that landscape, to their lives, to being alive and not being alive, just by that much distance. So in that case, the woman isn't the girl I knew isn't the character in here, but that moment was a real moment.
It's in there. You know, the form of the novel seems to me to be a form in which we can really learn more. They're better for me at self-help than self-help books, in the sense that you can go in and experience people, live through them a little bit.
Yeah.
How did you discover how did you learn about the form of the novel? Where did you understand that shape for yourself?
You know, that's a good question. I had one like that at a reading on Sunday where that really made me stop and think, because I'm not trained as a novelist. In fact, I'm not even trained as a writer, really.
You're practiced as a writer.
I've practiced as a writer my whole life. I've been a writer since I was a kid. But I did it more like a folk musician does, where you have an ear and you understand certain structure, and you look at other forms and you bring that into yourself, and then you feed them out. Not as somebody who studies classical theory and does all that. So as a writer, that's how I came to being a writer. And I don't necessarily consciously think about the things that I would think about if I had an MFA in writing. So in writing the novel, I didn't really have a model for it exactly. And I just started pushing things forward. I took aspects of it, stories and characters, and I started pushing them forward and seeing where they went, and then seeing how they might begin to collide in the future. And then I ended up taking some away once I discovered what I wanted to have happen. But I didn't really start in a way that I could imagine someone teaching you how to do it.
But I guess I want to get to the lessons in
Okay,
it.
the lessons
The
part,
life
yeah.
lessons, not so much the form. I mean, I love the form of the novel.
Yeah.
But I am kind of interested. I mean, you have, I'm going to ask you to introduce us to one of the characters, and it connects to something in your life that I don't know anything about. I want to find out a little bit more about. But yeah, what are the lessons that a novel can? What did you discover? I guess of the lessons in this book, and maybe help us, since the readers haven't read the book, maybe give them a little synopsis so they're intrigued by what they.
Okay. Well, thanks for bringing me back to that point, because it is important. I think what a novel can do for you as a reader is introduce you to the inside of another person. Now, I'm making up this person. None of these people are me in here. I'm making it up. But I'm trying to exercise my empathy for other people, my experience working and dealing with other people, my experience as a human being, and translating that into things that somebody else can read and get those feelings. So, and for that to happen, I have to feel them. I have to, in the case, the story starts with a rancher named Leonard Self.
Hold on just a minute. If you're just joining us, I'm talking with author Charlie Quimby about his new novel, Monument Road. So you're going to just tell us a little bit about the synopsis of the book.
Sure. The story starts with a rancher named Leonard Self, who has lived his entire life in this region. He's had a woman that he's loved very much who's passed away. She has requested that he deal with her ashes in a certain way by taking them up Monument Road along this ridge of cliffs to a favorite spot of hers and distribute her ashes. She has asked that because she thinks it will help him rehabilitate himself by giving him a year off to kind of get together and go off and then deal with her loss. But he deals with her loss in a different way, which is planning to throw himself off with her ashes and sort of consummate their life together in that way. So the story is his story and her story, but then it's also the story of these other characters who live in the same place, who also have experienced loss or disappointment, and are also connected to this road. And it all kind of weaves together in the story. Yeah.
So one of the characters that I heard you read, I'd like you to read the passage. Tell us about the junior. Okay. And what I was struck by is that what I'd also like to find out, because it does seem to connect to something that has a lot of passion for you, So maybe we'll have you read the passage, and then perhaps you could tell us a little bit about the work you do and
Sure.
why this was important to you.
Sure. There's, the emotion that we talked about earlier. There are times when you're writing these characters where you just feel them so deeply that you feel like you are them, or you feel like you're experiencing their lives. So I'm going to read this boy, Junior Crimmins, is the son of Hardy Crimmins Sr., who's kind of a low-life drug dealer. And when this chapter opens, the cops are coming to find his dad. Junior Crimmins was alone in the duplex with Brutus and Daisy, his father's pit bulls. He sat on the bare floor with his back against a moldering green couch, its cushions too broken down and sticky with spills for comfort. Brutus dozed against one leg and Daisy the other. Junior stroked their short, smooth coats and felt the warm skin glide back and forth over taut muscle. He felt Brutus tense, then Daisy. They rose together and trotted to the door. The knock and the word came together. Police. I'm going to jump down just a little bit to shorten this. Can we come in? All right. They stepped in and quickly assessed the room. The woman looked toward the kitchen. The man fastened on the dogs. Lay down, Junior said, and they both dropped to the floor. Good dogs, the man said, taking his hand off the pepper spray. Anyone else home? Asked the woman. I said, just me. And what's your name? Hardy Crimmins, Jr.? The officers gave each other a look. How old are you, Hardy? I go by Junior. I'm 8. The woman said, we're going to take a look around, okay, Junior, just in case you forgot someone else was home. I told you, but go ahead. Your dogs won't mind, will they? Said the man. Junior snapped his fingers, and Brutus jumped to his side. You can pet him. That's okay. Their look around was quick and efficient. The bedroom, the closet, the bathroom, no basement, no attic access, not much to see. The woman opened the refrigerator. What's this? Lard. You've just got lard in the fridge? Mom keeps it there because the dogs will lick it. Do you have anything to eat in the house? Scooters. Scooters? You know, Honey Nut Scooters. Oh, yeah, them. We'd like to talk to your dad. Do you know where he is? Not really. How about your mom? Where's your mom? Out. Did she say where she was going? To work. Where does she work? Different places. When's she coming back? Not sure. When did she go out? Wednesday, I think. The cops looked at each other again. Does Shannon live here? Not anymore. She doesn't like sleeping on the couch. Me neither. The cop made a blowing sound from the corner of his mouth, only he wasn't smoking a cigarette. Junior, said the woman cop, we're going to call some people who are going to help you. Do you have anything you could pack some clothes in? Your pajamas? A toothbrush? We're out of garbage bags. I was thinking more like a backpack. Junior shrugged. Where are we going? A place where people help kids. Do you have a pillowcase? You can put some things in a pillowcase, said the man. Sure, maybe we do. But what about Daisy and Brutus? Oh, don't worry about them, said the man. Someone will take care of the dogs.
Well, not only does that strike me emotionally, but it struck you, and
Yeah,
it connects to some work you're doing, some volunteer work. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I volunteer here in the Twin Cities with a place called People Serving People, which is a family shelter in downtown Minneapolis that serves families who have children primarily. And I volunteer in preschool with kids age 4 to 5. So certainly my experience, and I've been doing that since 2008. So my experience with those kids and those families certainly informed some of this. I work with homeless populations also in Grand Junction when I live out there, but those are the street chronic homeless, a different group of people. And I also had an incident when I was young in Colorado. in high school where we, the student council, good kids, would go out and do take turkeys out at Thanksgiving or Christmas to poor houses. And I remember walking into a house very much like the duplex I was imagining here with Junior, and the people let us in and then disappeared, didn't want to be seen. And we didn't know what to do with the turkey. We didn't want to leave it out on the table, so we went to the refrigerator. And in the refrigerator was a saucer with lard on it, and that was the only thing in the refrigerator. And so that, again, I'm sort of grabbing from different places. But boy, that really hit me. That really struck me that we're bringing one meal to these people, but this is their day. This is their daily situation.
This is what it is.
Yeah.
And so I think, again, in the novel, what you do there, and it still affects you, is that it brings us, I guess that's kind of my question about the writing. It allows you to enter in and feel an experience and help us feel it, which to me is about helping us open ourselves up to other experiences and perhaps act on them. Are there some other... that's not the main character,
right.
and so is there what other influence was there for you in doing this?
There's another one in there that I will say I took on as a bit of a challenge. I'm not a religious person, I'm a spiritual person, but not at all religious. And religion out there is a big deal. There are many, many different sects and denominations. When I flew back from there a few days ago, there was a Mennonite family or Mennonite girl who dressed in the traditional way on the airplane with us. There are just all kinds of folks who have all chosen a way to deal with their lives and infinity and their sense of how they belong in the world. And so one of the things I wanted to do in the book is show some of those other ways that people who live in that sort of community try to deal with whatever comes their way, whether it's good or bad or their fears or whatever. So I had to sort of challenge myself to put myself in the place of a religious people when I myself am not one of those folks. I had to put myself in the place of a high school girl, and I'm not really one of those either. But that's part of the fun, that's part of the fun of doing it.
And so, so far, you've had a great response to the book.
It's really been great.
Yeah, it's had some critical acclaim, and how's that feeling?
It's pretty amazing. We've just gone into a reprint this week.
Oh my gosh, already!
And the official
you sold
release,
out the other night.
The official release was last week, so that's astounding. The really cool thing about this, I just wrote the book because I reached a point in life that I said, you haven't finished a novel, get at it, do it. So that was my main goal in the beginning. But each increment as this moved forward, I got a reception. People were touched by it or they loved it, something about it. And so the neat thing about this is not about, the material or the literary success. It's knowing that it's touching people. I mean, that is... And then, because I have to talk to people about it, it brings me back to the thing I've created, and I'm finding new things in it myself. So that's really fun.
That must be very rewarding. And what are you finding in it? Is it leading you to the next task, the next project?
It is. I'm working on another book. I'm well into it. It's set in the same community. It deals with homelessness. It deals with... and it deals with the larger question of how do we, that we opened with, or that you and I were talking about, I guess, before we started, about the extent of your obligation as a human being to other people. And homelessness brings that in the open in our communities. We see it on the street, and we may feel one way or another about the people we see. But how far do we go? Mm-hmm. What is the extent of our responsibility as humans to other human beings?
And so that'll be the big question that leads you through.
It'll be a big question there.
And
yeah.
this is a novel as well?
It's a novel as well. I grappled with doing a nonfiction thing because I've had so many wonderful experiences with people out in Grand Junction in particular and learned so much from them. But I decided that the novel was a better way to expose people to some of this. Not to teach them, but to let them feel it.
Yeah, I love that. I guess that's why I think novels are the greatest teachers for all of us. So they can find you on a website?
They can find me at charliequimby.com with the W's in front. And there's a lot about the book, about what's behind it. I blog about various things and events that I'm doing.
Great. And so they can still catch you at some readings locally,
Right.
and find you and buy the book for Christmas and pass it on to others, right?
Absolutely. I think it's a great book club book. It's a good discussion book.
Yeah, there's a lot. It does feel to me like there's a lot to find out about. Well, thank you so much, Charlie.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Come see us again next week on the St. Paul Forum.